Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've been building AI systems for a minute, you've probably got some pretty deeply ingrained habits. But today, we're going to completely upgrade your mental model of how Claude works and honestly, transform you into a true prompt engineering master. We are diving into the latest source material to show you exactly how to squeeze every drop of performance out of Claude's newest models.
So here's the serious question you really need to ask yourself right now. Are you actually getting the most out of these latest models? Because prompt engineering has shifted so rapidly lately. What worked like an absolute charm yesterday, aggressively forcing a model to use a tool or pre-filling its responses, might literally be holding your autonomous agents back today. If you want to unlock the crazy stuff, like multi-day autonomous workflows, we've got to update that playbook.
Okay, let's just jump right into the game plan for today. We're going from the golden rules of prompting straight into unlocking the new models, building true agentic systems, running through a migration playbook, and then wrapping it all up by mastering the console tools.
All right, level 1. Let's get our foundation straight with the golden rules of prompting. This is all about how you mentally frame that initial communication.
The number one rule from the source material is surprisingly human. Basically, you need to treat Claude like a brilliantly smart but completely brand new employee. I mean, they have all the raw brainpower in the world, right? But they have zero clue about your specific company norms. If you hand a prompt to a human coworker with barely any context and they look at you confused, well, Claude's going to be confused too.
And this is exactly why coaching matters so much. Say you use a vague prompt, like just asking it to suggest changes. You're probably just going to get a random list of ideas instead of actual implementation. If you want that above and beyond behavior, where it actually writes the code or fixes the text, you have to explicitly demand it. We're talking specific constraints, numbered steps, exact output formats. Don't just hope it guesses your end goal.
To actually deliver those precise instructions, you've got to use XML tags. Honestly, this is a total game changer. When you mash together instructions, background context, and variables, the model gets tripped up. But if you wrap every specific type of content in its own descriptive tag, like, instructions or documents, it drastically reduces misinterpretation. It gives the model a rock-solid, unambiguous hierarchy it can parse perfectly every single time.
Now, this becomes absolutely crucial when you're dumping in massive 20,000-plus token documents. Pro tip here, put your long-form data at the very top of your prompt. Then, before you ask Claude to do the heavy lifting, tell it to find and quote the relevant parts of the text first. Grounding the response in exact quotes helps the model cut through all the noise so it focuses exactly on what matters.
Let's move on up to level 2 and talk about unlocking the new models, specifically looking under the hood at powerhouses like Fable 5 and Opus 4.8.
There's a massive shift here called adaptive thinking, and it completely replaces the old manual extended thinking. Basically, Claude now dynamically figures out when and exactly how much to deliberate based on how complex your prompt is, plus a new effort parameter that you control. It naturally drives way better multi-step reasoning without you having to manually handhold it through every logical jump.
So the whole trick is using this effort parameter strategically. Cranking it to high or X-high triggers deep deliberation for those really complex tasks, while medium or low gets you snappy, low-latency responses for routine stuff. And here's the crazy part. On a model like Fable 5, the lower effort settings often beat the absolute maximum performance of the older generation models. You save on latency and cost, but keep the quality.
Speaking of Fable 5.5, the stuff it can do is just wild. We are looking at true long-horizon autonomy, like sustaining productive output over multiple days. It can interpret dense technical diagrams, tear through codebases with advanced bug-finding recall, and it heavily uses parallel tool calling to delegate tasks out to subagents. It's literally taking on end-to-end projects that used to take a human days or even weeks to finish.
Which brings us perfectly to level 3. Let's dive right into the agentic frontier and talk about building systems that can handle that kind of long-horizon autonomy.
Because you're probably wondering, if an agent is running for days, how on earth do you keep it from losing the plot? How do you stop it from hallucinating its progress during a massive workflow that spans across multiple context windows? If you just let it run unguided, models can easily fabricate status reports or just completely drown in the data volume.
The secret sauce is methodical state management. The sources lay out a great mix of tools for this. Use JSON for tracking your structured state data and just simple free-form text files for running progress notes. But crucially, use Git. Logging checkpoints and handling state restoration with Git is a game changer here. It allows the model to just focus on incremental progress instead of trying to boil the ocean all at once. You're essentially building a continuous memory loop. Set up a simple markdown file, explicitly instructs Claude to record its lessons from previous runs, and this is the most important part. Whenever a context window clears, force Claude to review that progress file and the Git logs right at the fresh start. You never want it starting completely blind and repeating the same mistakes. Oh, and here is an absolutely critical tip for those long asynchronous runs. You need to give the agent a specific tool. Call it something like send_to-user. This lets Claude surface code snippets, exact metrics, or direct messages to you mid-task without actually ending its turn or breaking its flow. If you want any transparency into what the agent is actually doing, you need this tool.
All right, level 4. Let's talk about the migration playbook, because if you want this new stuff to work, we've got to upgrade your existing prompts.
It's fascinating how our legacy habits will literally break things today. The old way meant doing things like forcing pre-filled assistant responses. Well, those are blocked in the newer models now, so you should use the structured outputs feature instead. And you know how we used to aggressively yell in all caps, "Critical, you must use this tool"? Yeah, don't do that. It makes the highly proactive new models over-trigger and spit out errors. Just keep your instructions normal and let adaptive thinking handle the reasoning.
Finally, we are at level 5. Let's master the console tools. This is all about taking everything we just talked about and giving you an actionable tool belt for your daily workflows.
The heart of this tool belt is the prompt template. It's a really clean structure that separates your static core instructions from the dynamic user inputs, which you just wrap in double brackets. If you're building an app, you don't want to rewrite the core logic for every single user query, right? Prompt templates solve that blank page problem and make your API calls super consistent and testable.
And if you really want to take an OK template and make it world-class, you've got to use the Prompt Improver tool in the Claude console. It runs this fully automated 4-step process. It identifies examples in your template, drafts it out with those strict XML tags we love, injects rich chain-of-thought instructions, and then enhances your examples to perfectly match that reasoning process.
The before and after is just night and day. A basic prompt basically crosses its fingers and hopes the model guesses right. But the improved prompt? It transforms a basic request into this deeply structured, master-level query. You've got step-by-step reasoning, pristine XML organization, and standardized examples. That level of rigor is exactly what guarantees high accuracy when you're dealing with messy enterprise data.
Which brings us to our final thought today. We've gone through the golden rules, adaptive thinking, agentic state management, and some seriously powerful console tools. The sources make one thing crystal clear. The teams getting the absolute best results aren't just automating boring chores anymore. They're throwing Claude at their most ambiguous, difficult, long-horizon problems. So, now that you're armed with these new superpowers, what complex, unsolved system are you going to build first?